A couple of weeks ago, I was gifted this Kerry Hill fleece. Well, this is not all of it. There was an entire bag of it, which I first, got rid of all the straw bits that were in there, skirted it, scoured it, and then prepped it on my drum carder for spinning. Because I want a sweater from this wool. And that is what we're going to do today. We're going to spin the wool for that sweater. Now, in all fairness, we're not going to spin all of the wool because a couple of weeks ago it was Tour de Fleece, and in the final days of Tour de Fleece I could get started on this project, and I already have 3 skeins of this very bouncy, soft and squishy yarn. This is not enough for a sweater. Tour de Fleece, while I spun this, is an event in which spinners all over the world spin while the cyclists of Tour de France are cycling. And you know what today is? It's the start of Tour de France Femmes. So the cyclists are cycling again. Over the coming 8 days, I will continue spinning this Kerry Hill fiber and hopefully have a sweater's worth of yarn at the end. And for this grand endeavor of spinning a sweater's worth of yarn, it'll be my trusty Mothercraft Suzy Pro that will help me with this. I am spinning this long draw, and I'm trying to achieve about a DK weight. Now, I think that after wet setting, the yarn that I have already made also bloomed a little bit, and it might be somewhere between DK and worsted, which is fine. For what I want to do is actually make like a really fluffy, cozy cabled sweater, and I want to make it green, a very specific green. I want to dye it with tansy flowers and then shift the dye bath with an iron after bath. That is the entire plan. The plan for which now, of course, we will have to spin a lot. Now, both the terms a lot of yarn and a sweater's quantity are kind of a little bit flu, just floating out there in space. What do they mean? Perfectly subjective. So maybe we should define what we want, how much yarn that we want to get out of this spinning session. Normally, for myself, with the measurements that I have, I go for once we get over 1,000 meters, then I can probably find a pattern that will fit me. But this time I want to do it a little bit different. I want to turn my method around and find a pattern and then spin up until the so many meters that we need. I have brought with me my grandmom's folders with all the patterns that she collected, and I'm going to try and find a nice, cabled, structured sweater that we can make. I took my grandmom's knitting magazines and knitting folders here because those patterns are mostly late 70s, 80s, 90s, which is a period of time where, the silhouette is still distinctively vintage, but also they like using thicker yarns. I can't take my 1940s patterns for this yarn. I know, we can't. Not these. I've got some contestants. The one that is lying right here, it's this one in the corner. Where's my finger? This one in the corner, which is a brioche knit, but with cables. That could be very challenging. And just imagine it not in white, but in bright green. These are cute too, but these are mail order only, and I don't think I can send them a letter to get these patterns. A little cardigan, it's just very classic cabled. Again, imagine this in bright green. Another really big contender, because I think this just looks squishy and warm, is this all-over cabled sweater. And then this is not a vintage magazine, this is actually a very modern magazine that I think I picked up somewhere on a flea market, but it has this lovely and cute cabled number as well. And I do like the combination of cables and baubles. I already have this, which is the Bookish Cardigan by Annie Lupton, which also features cables and baubles, and I think it's amazing, so I don't know. Maybe let's just calculate how much meters we need for each one of these and then see what will be the most viable one, because I don't have an unlimited amount of Kerry Hill. Calculate, I say, doesn't it just say how much you need? Well, yes, the modern pattern, the Burda Breimode, they told me that I need 14 skeins of 105 meters, which is 1,470 meters. Easy as that. However, all the other magazines are just here to sell me yarn. So I know that for I'm now looking at the brioche cabled sweater, that needs 700 grams of perulana of patterns. So let's see how much perulana went. It always gives me Gedi fra perulana, and this is not the same. Is that like a really big singles yarn? Ooh, I'll put a question mark in that. Hopefully we have more luck with this one. Penguin Kiruna. Aha, we do! 120 meters per 50 grams, so per ball, and we need 1,560 meters. Feel that, shoot. That's 1,584 meters. So I think we can define that a lot, or a sweater's quantity, for what I want to do is around 1,500 meters. We are at 500 already. We only have to do double of that. So now, thanks to the portability and the rather compact design of this wheel, yesterday, while I was visiting my parents-in-law, I actually finished all of the singles for a first skein. So today we're going to ply, and then hopefully we will have something around 700 meters already, which would bring us like at the halfway point of where we want to be for a nice cabled sweater in my size. So this is the first skein of this video, which is 200 meters of Kerry Hill, which puts our grand total somewhere around 700 to 750, which means that we're approximately halfway of what is the sweater quantity we want for the plans that I have. Sunday morning, 11 o'clock, or well, Sunday noon almost. So we've got about a week to get at least another 700 meters of this Kerry Hill. So those 4 patterns that I picked as possible contestants for, a sweater with this quick Kerry Hill, I picked them like visually what looks like is going to work with this yarn. Is this a scientific way that will ensure that there is no hiccups on the way? No. And this is also why I keep it at those 4, even though I have a preference personally for the brioche one, because that one seems to me like a challenge that will up my level of knitting a little bit. But currently all those 4 are still possible sweaters that I will make with the Kerry Hill. I will have to make gauge swatches and see which one of these comes closest to the yarn that I made. Now, of course, what you could do to remove that uncertainty is to try and match the yarn that is given in the pattern. Like, I did not do that. I just started spinning during Tour de Fleece, and I was like, yeah, I want like a DK weight or something. I could have, meticulously matched it to one of the patterns that I wanted to knit, which I did not pick back then. So, but you could do that. You could look at a pattern and see, this yarn is so many meters per this gram, and then try to emulate that. I will now have to make gauge watches and then see which one of the patterns matches most closely to the yarn that I just started spinning without any thought about it. And that is how we will probably pick the pattern. And I'm seriously hoping it's the brioche one. Even though that's the one I don't exactly know how much yarn I need for it, but still hoping for the brioche one, because that one just, as I said, will probably be the most interesting for me to knit. So, as said, it's 11 o'clock, I've got a new bed, let's make another skein. Like, for this week of Tour de France Femmes, I'm relying heavily on the weekend days to get the yardage, the meterage that I need, because during the week I have to work and there will be minimal spinning time, but it is Sunday now, maximum spinning time, and I'm going to take advantage of that, really as much advantage as I can. There we go, a second skein. That's 182 meters. So together this is a little less than 400 meters. Yeah, very nice, which means that we are almost at 900 meters now. If I was just going to make like a stockinette, plain, probably cropped sweater, I would now be at a sweater's quantity for my size. And as I said, I like them a little bit cropped. But of course, we are making, or I am planning to make, a cabled sweater. And structured, textured stitches like that asks for more yarn. But you know what? There is, I believe, nothing as worth it as spinning your own yarn for your own garments. It is just, like, knitting your own garments is nice, it's amazing, but knitting your own garments from handspun yarn is just that tad bit more magical, you know. But I'm talking to you. You already know this, or you wouldn't be watching. You know, handspun yarn is... Yeah, and just knowing where your wool came from also is the best feeling. Like, this is Kerry Hill, and according to the Fleece and Fiber source book, this is like kind of in the range of all the down adjacent breeds that just get labeled wool. So if you just buy a skein or a garment that is just labeled wool and has nothing special about it, like it's not merino or Shetland, like they don't name the sheep breed, then chances are it is just a mixture of this kind of wool. But now I can say exactly that what I'm going to make will be Kerry Hill and not just wool. Well, it's only 5 o'clock right now, so I think I will get prepping making another one. I kind of want to spin more than what I need, like more than the 1500 meters that I've just calculated this morning, because firstly, you know, have some margin for error, and two, I also just want to give a bit of the yarn to my neighbor who is the owner of the sheep, so that he can have some yarn from his sheep. Friends, I was just cycling home, evidently. Maybe I should take off my helmet. And I feel like my city has personally attacked me. There was this beautiful, big, abundant patch of tansy. Like, my entire plan was spin a sweatish quantity of yarn during the week, and then in the weekend go forage, make nice shots, you know? Tansy waving in the wind, that kind of thing. I cycle that path every day, except for yesterday. Because yesterday it was scorching 35 degrees and I was like, no, I'm going to take the shaded route. So I took a different route. Today I go back past that beautiful, beautiful spot of tansy and I see that all of it is gone. It's been cut, the brush has been cleared. Why? So, my new plan is to take a paper bag with me now the coming days and just stop at every tansy patch that I find. There are many, like I come across lots of tansy when I'm cycling. None of those patches is as beautiful and big and abundant as the one that has just been cut. But over the course of this week, I will collect the tansy in my paper bag. There will be no cinematic shots. Thank you, city. And then I can, well, I will pick a paper bag because a paper bag dries them out and I can then use them, because tansy is one of those plants that you can use still as a dye stuff when it has dried. So you can use it all year round. You can just harvest now, use whatever you need. So that's what's going to happen. And maybe some cursing. Hello, it is the next day, and I have actually remembered to take off my helmet before filming. And I did bring a paper bag today on my cycling ride, and yeah, that's already quite a bit of tansy that I found on many different spots, and tansy is one of my favorite smells. Yesterday I managed to spin the second bobbin and also ply. Yay! I thought that we would get another skein today, but it was yesterday. I'm a little bit ahead of the schedule that I had planned for myself, which is always a great feeling. Let's skein this up, count it, and see how much it is. Or maybe also get out of my cycling clothes. Because I am, contrary to the tansy, stinky. So this is approximately 174 meters. Why am I spinning smaller and smaller skeins? This is not what's supposed to be happening. This is not how we're going to get to 1500 meters at the end of this week. But anyway, here is this skein. Looking nice and DK as always. Well, since we're not making like big chunguses with a lot of meters, we'll have to make more, so let's just get started on another singles, because no time like the present to start spinning. I had started spinning this bat, but I am currently putting it in a little baggie of shame, because it is one of those sticky, clumpy bats again, and I have decided that I'm not going to waste my time on those anymore. It's not like I don't have any Kerry Hill left that I can card. That will probably make nicer bats and nicer spinning. So I have switched out to another bat, and let's spin that one. If in the end we don't have enough, I mean, I still have the sticky bat, but right now, nah. Nope. Hello! I've got another bag of tansy. But that's not why we're here. Let's card some more Kerry Hill. Yesterday, I uploaded my video about the St. John's wort, and someone actually mentioned that the cutting of the brush so close to the street is actually beneficial because it will prevent or at least hinder the spread of wildfires, which are plaguing Europe at this moment. I wouldn't go as far as to say that my right-wing administration did it for that purpose, but if that's a bonus, I'm taking it and I'm no longer complaining about it. And now anyone who was the slightest bit invested in the wineberry saga that I did over on the Tour de Fleece vlogs, I'm going to make jam with 2 kilograms of fruit, of which I think 90% is wineberry. Also got lots of this white currant. There is gooseberry, blueberry. Yeah, but like 90% will be wineberry. So, yeah, skein number 4, but the trend of diminishing returns is continuing. This is 151 meters. Somehow, I think these are smaller beds than what I started with because my yarn isn't thicker. It's not that I'm spinning currently bulky weight yarn and thus having less meters for the same weight. It's probably just that my bats were thinner. So yeah, 4th skein, but I'm like behind in all the calculations that I did for the, you know, what is my sweater's quantity if I want to make one of the sweaters that I picked out. I came out above 1,500 meters, and currently, if I count what I have spun, it is 1,263. Now that is what I have spun, not how much yarn there is. Like, I am counting in the fact that there could be loss, that there is shrinkage when I wet set them like there. I will have to count again, of course, when all of this is done, but I was under the impression that, like, if this was finished and then I can spin another one over the weekend, I would have my full, you know, 1,500 meters and I could make any of those sweaters that I desired. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe not. We'll have to see. But anyway, I'm going to make 2 more bats. And I think that's about the amount of fluff I have still left. So it will have to do anyway. Maybe we will find a different sweater pattern to work for this yarn. Or hopefully we can get to 1,500. We'll see, but here is skein number 4. I am slightly in disbelief about the fact that I'm almost like through the entire fleece. I have almost spun the entire fleece, and this would not be enough for my project. You know why I am in disbelief, right? Like the previous couple of years, I have also spun through an entire fleece, which were often smaller than this Kerry Hill, and then was able to make 2 projects, one of which was a cabled sweater. I know those yarns were thinner, like the Shetland I did last year was a fingering weight, and then I did a cabled cardigan and a collarwork sweater afterwards. But then the blue tassel that I did, I think was sport weight. I mean, not DK as this one is, but then I did a cabled sweater and then a brioche cardigan. Now I just want to do one. And, well, yeah, I'm like, you know, almost believing that when I recount this yarn, it'll come out as more, and in the end I've just been using a wrong number to, you know, calculate the length of my niddy noddy, and all my skeins have been incorrect for years. Somehow I believe that's what's going to happen, because I can't believe that I'm almost through this entire huge, because it was huge, Kerry Hill fleece, and only have 1,200 meters of yarn. That just seems incredible. I can't believe it. Now, but what if I put that theory to the test? I know that I wrapped this one around my niddy 108 times, so there is 108 strands, loops. And if I now put it on my Swift, I can measure like how long one loop actually is. I'm not getting my hopes up, but also won't hurt to test. Also, I really love my yarn after it's been wet finished. It just has a really beautiful texture and structure. All of them have this, I don't know, it looks like pearls. I love it. It's also a little balanced. Very good. Oh shit. That's even less. Flip. So I just like put some other skeins on my Swift and calculated, took an average of how much the shrinkage is, apparently. And no, we don't have 1,263 meters of yarn. We did spin that much, because I double checked the circumference of my niddy noddy, and I am still spot on with that niddy noddy, but the shrinkage was so much already on this yarn that we now have 1,020 meters. I suddenly am half a kilometer away of my goal. And I don't have all that much time to spin today. And tomorrow I also have like only the afternoon, so we will see. I also don't have much fiber left. I'll just spin what there is left. And if you're saying, Jente, of course, that is your own fault that you don't have much fiber left. You cannibalized that fleece for some dyeing shenanigans. Only this much? Just one bag? Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? So, it's Sunday, the 9th of August, and whatever yarn that we can make today will be the final yarn. Could I have taken a less oppressive deadline? Sure. There is no reason why I should finish everything for Tour de France Femmes, for Tour de Use, if you will. But as I've told you yesterday, I also don't think I have enough fluff to spin for more days than just today. It's going to be the end. My basket is also almost full, which absolutely says nothing about the amount of yarn, maybe only that this is an inadequate basket to hold a sweater's quantity of yarn. But yeah, looking at them together, yeah, very happy with how this yarn looks. It looks really uniform and all creamy and soft and very ready to dye. Yes, I want to turn this green sooner rather than later. I just spun all of the remaining usable fiber. Like I made 3 bats that were like still usable. I know I've got that one sticky bat still, but I'm also feeling like I'm ready to be done. So the 3 usable bats I divided over these 2 bobbins. Now don't think I can ply them on regular bobbins, so I've got my my art yarn set out, which has a little bit of a broader bobbin, and hopefully I can ply this all on here and I will have an actual chungus. Yeah, but as I've said, I'm feeling really ready to be done with this project, or done with the spinning of this project. I want to continue on to the next steps. Tour de France Femmes was just the right amount of time to continue, but now I'm feeling very done. It is very round and there is almost no space. Yep, I think this is about the maximum amount of yarn that this bobbin can take. I hope that this does bring us closer again to our numerical goal. Let's count. If I count this cane just with the length of my knitted noddy, and this is a little over 250 meters. Now, if I also subtract the possible shrinkage, you know, the average I took from all my skeins over here, then, well, I think I can safely say that this is a little over 200 meters. Which brings a grand total, if I just count it, as I have been counting on my knitted noddy, so the meters that I have spun, the meters that have went through my fingers this past Tour de Fleece and Tour de Use, then yes, I have reached my 1500 meters goal. Then this is 1500 meters of yarn. However, counting in that percentage that might still shrink, well, we're somewhere between 1200 and 1300 meters, which I think is a sweater's quantity. I can check off my goal. I have spun a sweater's quantity of yarn from this one Kerry Hill fleece. Even if it is not one of the sweaters that I have showed you in the beginning of the video, this will give me a sweater that will fit me without a doubt. Without a doubt, this is enough yarn to make a sweater for me. But maybe I want to talk a little bit about the experience of spinning this Kerry Hill fleece. I highly doubt that if next year, when those Kerry Hill sheep are shorn, I will ask for a new fleece. The good parts in this fleece were so good, they were so soft and they spun so nicely, but they were also so rare. Yeah, I've had many different other sheep breeds that, just like this Kerry Hill, aren't bred for spinning. Like, they are lawnmowers with a heartbeat, they're pet sheep, but they have been like consistently better. Like, the entirety of the fleece is better. I liked the really good parts of this fleece, but it was just so few and far between. And that is a risk that you take with these kind of fleeces that aren't, you know, sold by a shepherd who breeds his sheep for wool, or who, you know, shears his wool for spinners. But I'm really glad that I had this experience, because if I hadn't spotted that, then I would have never known what my neighbor's Kerry Hill fleece would spin like, and that would have been a question that would have been plaguing me my entire life if I did not do this. So I am immensely grateful for this basket of yarn sitting right in front of me. That this is a very, very, very local to me sheep, like literally my mom's neighbor, like the person I grew up living next to. His sheep is now spun into all this yarn that will one day clothe me. I think that's amazing. Yeah, but I don't think I will ask for another Kerry Hill fleece from his flock. Anyway, next up will be dyeing this, and I'm looking very much forward to that, but I will do so in a separate video. If you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe, but of course that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. But before we do that, here are some more spinning shenanigans. Bye!